more trickling in.
All right, I'll go ahead and get us started. Hi, everyone. We're so happy to have you here virtually. I'm Kiana Garcia. I am one of the funding administrators at First Steps Kent, and I'm going to get us started with our presentation today. Welcome to the Ready by 5 Healthy Development RFP pre-conference. I'll let the rest of the team go ahead and introduce themselves really quick before we move on. Heather, if you want to start.
All right, good, because I can't see anybody. So hi, everybody. Heather Boswell with First Steps Kent, and I'll pass it over to Kati.
Hello, everybody. Kati Cortez. I am the financial accountant for First Steps Kent. Christine.
Thanks, Kati. Hi, everybody. Christine Simble-Larson, Senior Funding Administrator.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Strang. I'm Communications Director with First Steps.
And I already introduced myself, so. Let's get started talking about the Ready by 5 millage. Kent County voters overwhelmingly approved the Ready by 5 early childhood proposal in 2018 November, making Kent County the first county in Michigan with tax dollars that were collected specifically to support all of early childhood programming. This is funded by a 2.5 mil property tax, and that generates about 6.6 million a year from 2019 to 2024, which in total is about 39 million. So today, during our presentation, there's a couple of things that we're going to go over that you'll be able to learn, and a couple of virtual guidelines that I have in the next slide that we'll go over. The things that you'll be learning about today are requirements of agencies who receive the Ready by 5 millage funding, the RFP for 2024 funding, information about EC Impact and the online application process, the RFP timeline and process to submit questions during the application period, and any questions about the application process and RFP itself. Some of the virtual guidelines that we have, there is a link that we provided in the chat, which should come up here soon for you all to sign in. I think someone has that, maybe Megan. Sometimes it's like hanging down below, so okay. Any questions that you would have at this time, if you could just insert those into the chat box, and we'll be monitoring that as we continue through our presentation, and we'll get to those towards the end. And our session, of course, is being recorded. The First Steps Kent website, you can go to the millage tab along the top and scroll to funding opportunities and click in the drop down. And this is where you can find some more information on documents, and accessing EC Impact is right below there.
Great, thank you. Okay. And I'll just say to the First Steps Kent team, I'm not able to copy and paste in presentation mode, but the links are all in the presentation notes. So if someone wouldn't mind going in and grabbing those as we're moving along, that would be helpful. So in the notes of the PowerPoint. All right, so today we're going to take the time to walk through the request for proposal document. So this is available, as Kiana mentioned, on the First Steps Kent website. If you get onto our website, click millage, scroll to funding opportunities, you'll see links there, and somebody can put the direct link in the chat too. That'll be helpful. But this is the document that has all of the details around the funding. It has the requirements for agencies that are funded, the description of services, the directions to submit a proposal, and information on how proposals will be reviewed and evaluated. There's 3 sections in this document, and we'll kind of roll through each 3 here. In the first section, you will find out some of the requirements around the funding. So for this specific RFP, there's $202,000. This contract period will begin on April 1st, 2024 and end on September 30th, 2024. Typically, our contracts follow the county's fiscal year. That is currently in process of transitioning to an October 1 to September 30th year. As this is a special circumstance, we'd like this contract to begin as possible and not wait until October 1. So we are issuing this RFP with this April 1 start date. So this means that agencies will be reimbursed for covered costs that will be defined through the contracting process that are incurred on or after April 1. So the contract end date will follow the county's fiscal year and end on September 30th, 2024. And the agencies awarded the contract will have the opportunity to apply for continued funding to support services beyond September 30th, 2024. So there's a little bit of an overlap happening. We just want to make folks aware. But the idea is to get the funding out to get these services started, so we can get supports in place, and then have this contract follow the more typical contracting period. The other thing that we want to draw everybody's attention to is the Ready by 5 Service Provider Manual. And if somebody doesn't mind putting the link to that. This is the document that has all of the requirements around programming, all the financial requirements, all the reporting requirements, all the organizational requirements, as well as a description of services and program categories. So please take time to look through this as you apply, especially if you're not familiar with Ready by 5 funding. The thing that's important to remember with the Ready by 5 millage is these are taxpayer dollars. So there's specific requirements that need to be followed by the recipient agencies. So as an agency, again, you'll want to familiarize yourself with the Service Provider Manual. And we want to highlight the following policies. Policy 1.8, the data collection policy and procedure. Please take a moment to look through that and understand the requirements there. Policy 4.2, program and fiscal assessment, the requirements around those components. Family and individual donations and cost sharing and purchasing requirements too. Those are just usually the ones that we get a lot of questions about from organizations. So just want to make sure that you guys are familiar with those as you're applying. The other thing in section 1 that the document talks about is program monitoring and reporting requirements. So agencies will need to track funding and submit for expenses incurred monthly. There's also monthly data submissions, and that data policy will walk you through what's all required with that. That tends to be very I guess, heavy on data collection in terms of the amount of information and the specific data fields that need to be collected for each individual. So please take a moment to look through that if you're not familiar with those already. Agencies will also need to collect information about parent satisfaction with services and the program's progress towards meeting the contract outcomes that are submitted, and these are submitted in a quarterly report. Agencies will also be required to attend meetings, including the Ready by 5 Quality Improvement Consortium meetings, participate in an annual program assessment, complete an annual fiscal assessment, and report actual costs for reimbursement purposes, submit monthly individual level data and submit reports, as we just talked through. So with that, we'll move into the documents section 2, which is the specifications. As we continue into this section, we get into the specifications of the program that we are requesting proposals for. So a few highlights. This RFP only includes, we're only requesting proposals for this healthy development service category, and it's the niche family support type programming is what we call this. The niche family support program type will fund agencies who have experience reaching, supporting, and connecting families who benefit from specialized services and support. We also would like agencies who have established a position of trust and experience reaching and supporting families who would otherwise not be reached by programming apply, and also programs who will work to promote positive parenting practices and ensure families are supported and empowered with knowledge of how to access the available resources and services that support the healthy development and early learning of their young children. So a little bit more, and we also just want to call out that because this is an opportunity to apply for Ready by 5 funding that's happening in addition to the regular opportunity that we offer each year. So it is different. And for this reason, because it's these specific dollars that we are rebidding out, there is one very specific program to apply for in this RFP. Typically, we have a number of different opportunities, but just want to make sure we're very clear that this RFP, we are only asking for proposals to respond to the Child Family Advocate programming. So this is a program that will support up to 5 child and family advocate positions. Programming will be co-located within center-based early care and education classrooms that serve families from urban neighborhoods with the highest rates of poverty. And for this specific RFP, we have a priority on classrooms with specific agencies and locations. So there's 6 specific locations that are listed. If there is additional capacity, additional classroom locations may be served, but we really want to make sure that organizations and these specific programs have priority with these services. So in the RFP specifications, we're looking for organizations who will implement the Child Family Advocate program. And some features of this is it's really aligning with the Head Start philosophy. It's not Head Start, but taking elements from that framework. It's providing child and family support services that are co-located within the classroom setting. So it's not providing early education services, but really focusing on supporting families in that setting. And it is aligning and not duplicating with the supports provided through Early Head Start and the Arbor Circles KEEP program that are currently operating in these classroom locations. So there is additional information in section 2 of the RFP that walks everybody through these different features and some additional requirements too. That really scopes out, what we're looking for as far as the Child Family Advocate program. The other thing we want to mention is within the RFP, these 2 sections, there is section 2, Roman numeral 2, description, attributes, and results of services, as well as section 4, the criteria breakdown. Please take a moment to look at these and reflect on them as you are putting together your proposal. These are the elements that the Resident Proposal Review Board will be looking at how your proposal matches the description in the description, attributes, and results of services just part of the RFP, as well as the criteria that they will be using to evaluate proposals. So a little bit about the application. If you have not done this before, we will be having everybody submit their proposal through the EC Impact system. And there is information available on the First Steps Kent website. There is a manual with complete step-by-step directions to take you through the process of setting up an account if you have not done that before. And also, we encourage you to use these slides as well. We put some extra tips and reminders in this presentation. So as you're working through your proposal, maybe just kind of check in with the slides. The other thing we want to draw your eye to is the primary contact. As you are setting up your account, you will have to have a primary contact. And this is the designated person at your organization who can update other contact information at your agency. So it's really important that the person who signs up for this initially and signs on as that primary contact understands that they are the person that's doing that, especially if there's multiple programs that are applying for funding, because every agency gets one account. So sometimes it has to be shared across agencies, and that primary contact is the person who can add and remove people as needed. This is also the person who will receive information about the RFP process. So just make sure that you have that person set and they know that they will be receiving possibly questions or follow-up about the RFP process. And would somebody mind putting the EC Impact link in the chat if you haven't already? Thank you. So as far as the proposal, we've broken it out into these 10 steps, and we'll kind of talk through each of these a little bit. But something I wanted to mention, as you move through the forms, you'll see instructions in light yellow boxes and these green question marks. If you hover over them, little boxes will pop up too. So we've tried to add these throughout the application to kind of offer prompts or reminders, as well as be clear about the most ideal way to submit information in the different boxes and forms. So the agency information, this is information that you will complete for your organization as a whole. So it's information about your leadership and staff representation and DEI efforts. Step 2 is about the program that you are applying for. So the Child Family Advocate Program, this is the section that you will tell us how much you are requesting. You will describe elements of your program and how you'll meet the specifications. We also ask questions about parent voice, how that will be incorporated in programming, and just pretty much walk through all the questions and provide the information as requested, and you will have a complete narrative. Step 3 is determining the number that you will serve. So this is the number of individuals that you will serve during the contract period, so between April 1 and September 30th. We also just want to remind folks that it needs to be a unique count. So this is the unique number of children. Sometimes some programs just count the total number of children, but these will be the unique number of kids. Also, a couple reminders, be realistic. Your contract will be evaluated on whether your agency achieves this number. So while sometimes we think about perfect scenarios and have this desire to be really effective with our reach, just really make sure that the number you're thinking about is realistic, especially as there's ramp up time with this program, as it's a newer program and other considerations with getting partners on board. The other thing that we want to mention is in your counts, please don't count parents and children from the same family in your count. While you might be interacting with both a child and a parent, the primary individual served should be the child. So then we go into step 4, which is determining measurable program goals. And we're using the SMART goal, the SMART-E, which is includes inclusion at the end. So these are the goals that are specific to your program. Following this example, it will write up, following this example, write up any additional measurements you use to determine the effectiveness of this program. So we need a minimum of 1 program-specific goal. And these are the goals that you will report on in your quarterly report. So make sure that it's information that you can actually track and will be able to report on through the contract period. We included a couple of examples for you guys to reference if that's helpful about what SMART goals might look like. These are not specific to this program, but just kind of give you a couple examples as you're thinking through your goals. The next step is to take us through partnerships. So in this section, what we're looking for are formal partnerships. We want to recognize that there's so many ways that agencies collaborate and partner, but what we're really getting at is who are the partners that you'll have a written agreement in place with. You'll define if it's a new or existing relationship, just give a description of the relationship, and will data or funds be exchanged from the partnership? So when we say data, will information about children or families, will that be exchanged in the partnership? And funds, meaning Ready by 5 millage funds. So for situations where funds are exchanged, the partner will need to be listed in the budget section under individualized subcontractors. And if there is collection of individual level data by a partner, and that is shared, there must be a Ready by 5 consent in place, and data will need to be submitted to Kent County Health Department. So we'll walk you through those pieces if that is a situation that's going to happen within the program, but just want to make you aware that those type of requirements are in place. And then we get to the budget. So in this section, we want to talk about the different positions that will be funded. So you'll see fields that will ask for things like the position title, the FTE, if it's a new or current position. There's also some narrative sections that describe how you'll address cost sharing, additional sources of revenue, and how administrative expenses were calculated in the budget that you're submitting. So step 7, we've got the full budget, and there are 4 sections in the budget. This is a little bit different if you've submitted budgets previously. In the first section, we're asking for direct staff and program costs. So this section includes costs that can be identified specifically with a program and are therefore charged to that program. So examples of this would include all of the costs for your direct service positions, your program supplies, mileage, travel, the technology that your staff will be using, subscriptions, fees. So if you're using online communication or other type of screenings, perhaps there's sometimes fees with that, as well as staff training. Indirect, this definition is a little bit different than how some other agencies categorize indirect. So please note that how we categorize indirect, it's reserved for costs that identify with the proposed program, but are not the resources providing the direct interactions with families served. So your data support, your manager, supervisors, your marketing, communications, these are all really important positions. They make sure that the program operate, but they are not interacting with families. So we consider those type of positions indirect costs. We also just want to note for this round, the CEO and executive director time, it cannot be allocated in this section. What is new for this period is there are select administrative costs. So this section is specified back office costs only, and we are asking for just amounts that you will need to support things like occupancy, rent, utilities, your financial supports, IT, your HR, insurance. So there's very specific line items that are called out, and leadership. So how much your administrative leadership would cost would be included under this line item. And we're asking for a brief description on how each of these were calculated in the budget narrative. And finally, subcontractors. This is any partner agency who will be receiving Ready by 5 funds through your contract. You will have to have an MOU or agreement in place that describes the nature of that relationship and the terms of that payment. So just want to make sure that that's clear as well. Finally, step 8, we get to the certifications, and there's some attachments. So attachment B and C. So this is a proposing agency agreement, which talks about like the terms that you're agreeing to by putting in a proposal, as well as a certification statement. So this is at the agency level, and it must be signed by the executive director, president, CEO, whoever your lead position is, and the board chairperson of your organization. So these are available as fillable PDFs. They can be downloaded from the Resource Center. When you're in EC Impact, you'll see a column on the left-hand side of the screen, and it's at the very bottom. And you'll see this Resource Center, and you will find the documents uploaded there. So you can download them, sign them, and then you will be able to upload them to this additional required attachment section. We're also asking for 3 letters of recommendation, your most recent audited financials, an org chart, and if you want to include an agency annual report, those are nice to have, but that is optional. So step 9, check for accuracy, and then step 10, submit, and you will be through the process. You'll want to make sure that as you're submitting that there is a final submit. Each section you can submit and mark it as completed, but everything needs to be completed at once, and there's one final submit process. So you'll see all of the forms on your screen turn green once that happens. And again, please check the training manual, the EC Impact training manual. It'll walk you through that as well. And I'm going to hand it back to Kiana.
Hi, everyone. Long time no chat. Things to check out before you submit everything. The budget form only provide expenses that are going to be on the Ready by 5 funding request. Your staff positions, these need to be described in the budget narrative and should be itemized in the budget expense section. And for partnerships, any partnerships where funds are going to be exchanged, these should also be itemized and included in your budget expense section. And any questions that you are going to be having on the RFP while you're doing this, they need to be submitted in writing. The deadline to submit those questions is December 20th, 2023, obviously this year, not next year, by 5 p.m. There should be a link provided in section 3 of the RFP document, not an EC impact, so it is inside of that document. And if it is not submitted by December 20th, 2023, these questions aren't accepted after that time frame. Any technical questions that are related to EC impact only, you will need to ask those questions. Like you can email the Ready by 5 email box for EC impact questions only, but those other questions need to go to that link in the RFP document. First Steps Kent will provide all final answers to questions and amendments to the RFP no later than December 29th of 2023. And things will be posted to the FSK website. Obviously, you can't click this link, but you can use it. It is the respondent's sole responsibility to monitor all inquiries, including those submitted by other agencies and published by First Steps Kent, to properly prepare proposal for submission. And you will see section 3 of the RFP for a full write-up of this section here, so you could better understand it. This is just highlighting what I just previously said about EC impact. For technical questions on EC impact, you just email that Ready by 5 email inbox, and someone from the Ready by 5 group will get back to you to hopefully help you resolve your EC impact issues. This is the timeline that has been established. The RFP is issued as of today, and it is posted on the First Steps Kent website. And obviously you're all here attending the pre-proposal conference, so that also occurred today. The question and answer period does close on the 20th at 5 p.m. So please make sure that you review the RFP and make sure that you submit any questions that you might have on the RFP before that time frame. This way you're not kind of rushing around to figure out what it is that you might need help with. So just kind of plan and prepare for what may need to be answered ahead of time. Final questions and revisions to the RFP, if necessary. These are going to be based on any questions that you may have. We don't foresee any changes, but there might have to be some depending on any questions that you have by the 29th. For January 8th, the RFP proposal submittal deadline is by 3 p.m. So mark that on your calendars. I was going to say make sure. Do both of those things. Ready by 5 resident proposal review board allocation meeting is on the 19th of January. And then the First Steps Kent Commission review and approve the resident proposal review board allocation recommendations is going to be on January 25th. And then you will have your preliminary notifications of your awards by February 1st. And the approximate contract start date would be April 1st. Awards are contingent upon approval by the Kent County Board of Commissioners. So this date could fluctuate based on the county's meeting and agenda schedule, but this should give an approximate timeline. And to note, so sorry, I'm losing my voice. First Steps Kent will be reaching out to to all the proposing agencies with questions and requested clarification from the RPRB. Agencies will expect to receive questions between January 8th and January 19th, and these will be sent through EC Impact. So you'll just be sure to go in and check your EC Impact system, and whoever is listed as your primary contact in EC Impact, you need to be sure that they're the ones that are checking most frequently and the one who has knowledge and access of how to operate EC Impact so that those questions don't go unanswered. Double check your emails and phone contacts for the primary contact that's listed in EC Impact and make sure that it's correct as you submit your proposal. Any questions that you may have? I don't know if anyone submitted anything in the chat, but now would be a good time to put any of those in the chat box so that we can answer those for you. And anything that's not answered, we will put kind of like an FAQ section on the Ready by 5 funding website.
So I see one question from Scott in the chat, and Scott is asking, will agency contacts get an email when questions are asked via EC Impact? So yes, if your proposal is submitted and we have questions about it, or the Resident Proposal Review Board has questions about it as they're reviewing, we will, there's a feature in EC Impact that allows us to send questions to you, and you'll receive a notification that there's a question in there. And Maureen, is the preference for only one agency to be awarded the contract or multiple? We're thinking one, as it's not a large award, but we haven't put that in writing in any way. So that's not a final answer. We'll let the Resident Proposal Review Board kind of make that decision. And Katie, are the required classrooms that were mentioned already active and have data on the current students that can be helped? Yes, Katie, they are currently active classrooms. And I'm not sure what you mean by data on the current students that can be helped. Okay, so Katie, I see your follow-up, and it's okay. You guys can unmute too. Sometimes the chat's a little. So Katie, your original question was, are the required classrooms that were mentioned already active and have data on the current students, meaning specific diagnosis, or if so, IEP goals? So the purpose of the Child and Family Advocate is to support family and children with more family and children needs in terms of being connected to community resources. While there will be probably some involvement with supporting kids with IEP goals, the specific responsibility of supporting children with IEP goals or IFSP goals does not fall within this program. There's a KEEP program, and then there's also some of the classroom supports that are already in place that will probably do the predominant lift with that. But just want to make it clear that if you look through the description, you'll see more the role of what we're looking for with this program.
This is Katie. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify the question a little bit.
Yeah.
So I represent the Down Syndrome Association, and I'm also kind of here on behalf of a couple other disability organizations.
Ah, okay.
And we're realizing, and the reason we joined today is because a lot of our families with disabilities are not getting those resources or not getting the advocacy and support, knowing, especially the minority families are not getting connected to them. And so that was the idea of, could we collaborate and come in and make sure they're being provided those resources and connections? And that's why I asked about the diagnoses, so that we could kind of collaborate and make sure they provided those different connections.
So I'll just encourage you to look through the RFP and see
Okay.
if that fits with what we've described in the program specifications. If it does not, once this RFP is complete, we would love to have a conversation with you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Heather, I think it's Christine. I think there's one question that Megan inserted.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I was trying to. I'm not sure what the question. Did somebody ask about partnering with GSRP or private sites partnering with GSRP? If we get clarification on that, we'll answer that question. I guess I'm not sure what I'm answering. And the level of investment, there's $202,000 is the amount that's available. You're welcome. Jen, no, this is not a credential. This is, it's a description of the program. When we met with partners, we went through a process that where we were able to define the supports that are in place currently with Early Head Start, the supports that are in place with the KEEP program that's operating in most of these classrooms, I believe, and what was remaining, the needs were. So that's how this definition came about.
This is Scott. I'll just ask this verbally if you don't mind.
Sure.
With this particular funding for the Child Family Advocate programming, when it renews, is the expectation, can we expect that it would be double the funding amount available because this is just for 6 months? After
So how it would typically work is funding would be enough to cover a full 12 months. Of course, there's, all of this is contingent on the Resident Proposal Review Board and how they decide to allocate. But when we fund, like these numbers are based on a shorter contract year. So if we renewed this contract, the idea would be to provide 12 months of funding. So it probably would be more than what the first contract will be. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So
Okay.
202,000 is roughly 6 months of funding, and if you renew at 12 months, it'd be roughly double that.
Yeah, and we put a little bit in there for startup as well. So I don't know if that would be a exact figure that I would put out there.
Okay.
But it would represent 12 months worth.
That's fair. Thank you.
Mhm. Oh, good question, Dick. So the contract straddles 2 academic years. Should we count the kiddos we will have in April and then the new kiddos starting in September? If you can provide that, yes.
Thanks.
Mr.
I'm
Shea?
gonna take the liberty, Scott, to thanks, Heather. I appreciate that. So realizing then that, we'll have the families enrolled through August, they start usually the Tuesday after Labor Day. We would only have them for what, 4 weeks to the end of this contract. So when we're looking at data, and even starting this in April, we'll have them for April, May. And then most of, at least our center, La Escuelita, I know those two for sure. Looking at the others, some of the other ones like REC though, they're infant toddlers, so they're early head start. So anyways, we send those families home, but we continue to work with them over the summer. This position does. So I guess there's some continuation. It does though we have a group of kids now and families, and we're gonna have a different group. Some saying, but a different group starting in September with a short window to be able to then meet the outcomes expected from this. But again, I got to dig into it deeper. We'll make it work.
Yeah, and we'll do some thinking too. And if there's anything that we think of that might be helpful, we'll put it in the Q&A. So how about yes tentatively and stay tuned for more information.
Hi, this is Tara. Just to throw it out there, that does provide about 3 weeks to close out programming with age waiver students. They wouldn't start till that second week. This position could maybe support with recruitment and getting families kind of ready and in there. So I think there's opportunities to utilize September SMART and kind of layer it for it to continue. September is just a really busy month, so it might be helpful to have extra support.
I second that.
So
oh, my fan Jen is here. Thanks, Jen.
So in terms of Tara, in terms of the position and the waivers, the waiver process typically starts in September. Is that what you're saying? And
so yeah, so any child who would turn, say 3 or 4 after September 1st, that typically that first week of school is reserved for any child who meets those age criteria, and then they're placed the second week of school.
Okay.
So, with recruitment, you can recruit till February. So there would certainly be benefits those first couple of weeks of school to support families who haven't made a decision and ensuring that anyone transitioning out of the program lands safely in a new program. Transitioning is so critical and crucial. You wouldn't want all the families you work with over 5 months to then not have that continuity of care. So that final month would be critical for transitioning families and then welcoming in new families. Am I giving away some things? hints.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Helping
That's
everybody.
okay. I'm here to help.
Yeah. And I also just how it typically works with this funding too is things are renewed and programs continue. And while the contract and the paperwork, all that's renewed, the services shouldn't change that dramatically. So hopefully it's more of just kind of a blip, contracting blip that doesn't impact services.
Heather, are there any match requirements for this grant?
We do ask that other sources be leveraged. So
Okay.
so for example, the early Head Start dollars, the other sources, those need to be used first dollar. And this can't be used to what we call supplant or take, be used in place of those dollars. And that organizations be looking for other funding sources. But there's not an actual match.
Okay.
Real quick question. So Tara, you might be able to help on this. Heather Walczewski, if you're still part of this conversation, others, I mean, at the Y. So it's my understanding that the Refugee Education Center and Jacqueline Baber Bay, the Y, are both infant toddlers. So they're all under that CDI funding now because that federal contract ended under the ELNC. How much of what was in place for the family coach, Tara, was part of what ELNC was doing, or was it funded directly through the Early Head Start monies? Question being, as you wrote this proposal, Heather, you identified these 6 centers, and I'm going to advocate for Scott because they're a recent departure from ELNC, and I know Little Lights and doing some great work over there would benefit to have this position as part of their staffing over there. So how do they get consideration and or, I mean, again, I'm going to put it on the table, is Jacqueline Baber Bay and REC needing a coach because they're already being attended to through funding that's available through Early Head Start? And I'm not sure if they are. Tara?
So there was an open position that I believe was accepted by a former staff member for what they call a family service worker. I am not entirely sure if they're connected with all the open classrooms because there were how many? 3 different locations. So they may still need additional support just depending on the number of children they have enrolled currently. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's something to consider. And I know somebody asked earlier, if this is a collaborative effort or if this is one organization. And to your point, Dick, there are a lot of wonderful organizations doing early childhood work who have had family coaching or family support services in the past. So I don't know if a larger conversation has to happen after this with those who are interested, but I would certainly welcome that. So just going to throw that out there too.
Yeah. And just to reinforce that, like, this is where we're starting. We're starting with the organizations, and we did write in there if there is, space and capacity to add other programs, and it makes sense for the partnership. We're open to that, but just want to make sure that the groups that were in place get first priority. And I see a couple other questions, and I'm going to be mindful of time too. So I'm going to move on to Shanae's question. And Shanae is asking, if the millage is flat, do we expect this work to likely continue? And it's a great question. This is, these were funds that were allocated in the current year. So they're counted for, if you will. And it's not an additional pot of dollars. So they will continue in the way that the next rendition of the millage is going to continue. Some of this is we're also figuring out what the renewal will look like. So it's a little early to say if everything will look exactly alike, but we're advocating for continued services. So we'll have more information about that early next year. And Mackenzie, I see a question with the idea that one agency will be awarded this funding. Is the expectation that one agency serve all 5-6 identified early childhood centers? So we're asking that all of these centers have the opportunity to be a part of this. So whether that there's 2 agencies and some serve 3 over here and 3 over here. But what really will need to happen, it is probably discussion with partners and even discussion with the centers in terms of how that, could be operationalized. And then Carla, having lived my life in family engagement, is there opportunity?
Just a comment, Heather. You don't have to read the whole book that I wrote.
Okay, any other last questions?
Hi, Heather. I have a question.
Yes.
Just wanted clarification on the timeline. So if this one ended in September, would this be combined with the full renewal, or would these be
Yes.
still kept separate? Okay, it would be combined. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes. All right. Well, please leverage that link, send as many questions as you need to make sure that you continue to get clarification as you're reviewing the information. And we will be posting all the questions as well. So please take time to look at all the questions that everybody's asking. And it might help you think through and give you additional information to consider as you're writing your proposals. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing proposals come in. We really appreciate you guys.